First Year, Part 6, The Haunted House. A.M. Ashwin. Saturday passed by quickly, and before I knew it, I was waking up to Sunday. The sky only just starting to brighten outside. It must have been 5 or 6 in the morning. I dressed quietly, careful not to wake any of the girls, and went straight down to breakfast. As I neared the great hall doors, I noticed a large crate outside the doors. As much as I wanted to look at the costumes, I needed to get breakfast first. I was starving. Sighing, I pushed open the doors and went to sit at the Gryffindor table. The whole hall smelled like baked pumpkin and cinnamon. There were only a few students awake, and they were mostly Ravenclaw. There were no Gryffindors, I noticed. If I hurried and ate, maybe I could get to the costumes before anyone else. I shoveled down eggs and toast and drank a large glass of pumpkin juice. When I finished, I hurried to the crate full of costumes. I wasn't sure what kind of costume I was looking for as I dug around them, but stopped when I came across a pirate costume. The pirate costume had a black eye patch, a sword, a red bandana, high black boots, and it even had a fake wooden leg with it. I wouldn't need that, though. There was one problem with the pirate costume. It was meant for a boy. After rummaging around the crate some more, I could only find 2 other pirate costumes. Only one was a girl's one, but it was meant for a much older girl. Maybe I could adjust it. Then I had a thought. Who said I couldn't go dressed up as a boy? A series of thoughts went through my head at that moment. I could put a beard on my face, covering it more than just an eye patch would. No one would guess who I was. Unless I talked, then they would know I was a girl. But, maybe I could find a spell to charm my voice, so it was more like that of a boy. I could also make my hair look different. I tucked the costume under my arm and hurried back to my dormitory. I hid it under my bed and then went straight to the library. I needed to find the spells required for changing the costume a bit and a voice-deepening spell. There were only a few Ravenclaws in the library. They glanced up as I went by, watching me go. After only a few minutes of scanning the shelves, I discovered the 2 books I was looking for and I sat down in one of the red-cushioned chairs. I browsed through the books until I found the spell I needed. I jotted down the directions to each spell. Folding the paper with the instructions on it, I placed it in my bag. As I passed the Great Hall on my way back to the dormitory, I could see a group of Gryffindors clustered around the grate. I spotted Frank among them, laughing loudly at something James had just said. The 2 were fooling around with the costumes. It looked as if they had made up. I made my way up to the girls' dormitory. Lily Evans and Alice Fortescue were the only ones in the room as I entered. They both glanced up as I entered. Alice smiled slightly in greeting and went back to tying her shoelaces. Lily also smiled, but it was more genuine than Alice's smile had been. I smiled awkwardly back at them both, even though Alice wasn't paying attention. I made my way over to my bed and lay down. A moment later, Alice and Lily left for breakfast. I practiced the spells and the counter spells I would use on myself for the party. By the time I had mastered the spells, it was lunchtime. As I entered the Great Hall, I saw students screaming in terror, teachers trying to calm them, and everybody running about in a frenzy. I was confused and frightened for a moment. Was it Death Eaters? Voldemort? Was the school being attacked? Then I spotted a particular group of Gryffindor boys all laughing. Sirius and James were rolling on the ground with laughter. Remus was clutching his stomach as he laughed, and Peter had tears running down his face from laughter. I sighed in relief when I saw this. I walked over to Frank, one of the few students who wasn't running about screaming. He was looking at his food with a look of disgust. "So, what did they do this time?" I asked as I sat down. Before Frank could answer, I found out firsthand. Spiders. Everywhere. Billions of huge hairy black spiders crawling around. They crawled in all the food. They were all over the table and floor. Spiders dangled from the ceiling on webs. They were even crawling on the bench I sat on. How had I not noticed them when I came in? I didn't scream, I became still as a statue, frozen in terror. My eyes grew wide, and I had trouble breathing. I didn't scream as most people would have. I never screamed. Not in 3 years. The last time I had screamed in terror was on that night. The night my parents were killed. They're harmless, Frank reassured. Look, they're quite friendly, he showed me, placing a few of the spiders in his hand and petting one with his other hand. It didn't matter to me that they were harmless, or if they were friendly. It wouldn't matter if they talked, tap danced or sang sweet melodies. They were spiders. Huge spiders. Suddenly all the spiders vanished. Professor McGonagall stood glowering at the 4 boys who were still laughing. She gave them each detention and a long lecture about frightening students and causing mayhem. The 4 boys nodded their heads in understanding, all wearing matching repentful expressions. It didn't take a genius to know they weren't the least bit sorry. They were probably planning the next prank. The students gradually calmed down and retook their seats. Some sent the 4 boys angry glares, including Lily Evans. I could only nibble on a roll. My appetite was completely gone. "What costume did you get?" I asked Frank as I put butter on the roll I was eating. "We're not supposed to tell, remember?" Frank asked. "Yeah, but how am I going to know who you are?" I asked. Frank seemed to think about it for a moment. "I don't know, I guess we won't know until the end," he answered after a moment. As soon as lunch was over, Frank and I went to explore the castle grounds. We walked around for hours, looking at paintings, doors, and anything that could be a secret passageway. We were so busy talking though that we probably missed any secret passageways. Before we knew it, it was dinner time. My stomach growled in hunger. As we entered the Great Hall, I gasped in awe. Huge pumpkins with ghastly grins carved into their faces floated through the Great Hall. 1,000 bats fluttered from the walls and ceiling and flew over the tables in low black clouds, making the candles in the pumpkins stutter. Lightning cracked throughout the whole room. Frank and I sat at the Gryffindor table. Suddenly, a huge feast appeared on the long table, as it had at the start of term banquet. But this time its food was different. There were much more sweets. Every kind of candy you could imagine and then some, stuffed pumpkins, goblets of colorful liquids. There were orange streamers, fake bats and spider webs, skeleton heads that were enchanted to move their jaws and talk, and all sorts of Halloween-related decorations. Everyone began to eat at once. I was glad that I hadn't eaten very much at lunch. I was able to try almost all the candies before I started to feel full and a little sick from all of the sweats. As we neared the end of the feast, there was a loud screeching sound that made all the students jump in fright. I looked around for the sound. The ghosts of Hogwarts were popping out of the walls and making loud screeching sounds to scare the students. Once the students realized it was just the ghosts, they laughed and applauded. The ghosts bowed dramatically. Once the feast was over, and everyone was stuffed full to the brim, all the students got up and went to get ready for the party. I went straight to my dormitory and made sure everything was all ready. I tried to read to pass the time, but I was too excited. The other girls in the room all talked excitedly the whole time leading up to the party. The other girls all got dressed in their costumes as it neared time to leave. I waited until all the girls had gone before I got into my costume. As I cast a hair-thickening charm on my face, Lily Evans came back. I jumped in surprise as she entered. Her look of surprise upon seeing me told me SH had thought everyone was down in the common room. "Sorry to scare you," she said. "I forgot my cape." She gestured to the bed where her Red Riding Hood cape still lay. "It's okay," I said, shrugging. "Just, don't tell anyone it's me. I don't want anyone to know." She smiled in understanding and put on her red cape. "I never would have guessed it was you." She surveyed my costume from head to toe. "I can't even recognize you." "That's the idea," I said, smiling as I put on my boot and strapped my sword on my waist. "Come on, Lily." I heard Alice call from down the stairs. Lily smiled and rushed off. I cast an amplifying charm on my voice, which had been one of the harder spells to get right, and then went down to the Gryffindor common room. Everybody was in their costumes. I could recognize nobody. Everyone wore masks, even if it didn't go with their costumes. All of the students were piling out of the room. I followed the crowd to the Hogwarts grounds. Everybody was talking in excited tones as we went. I managed to work up the courage to talk to one of the costume-clad figures. To my surprise, the girl talked to me. The girl was dressed a devil, with a pitchfork and a red mask covering her face. She had black hair, but it easily could have been a wig. I had no idea who she was. We chatted the whole way, and a few of her friends even joined in the conversation. As we walked, I could see a large house a short distance away that had not been there earlier. As we neared it, I noticed that there was a graveyard surrounding it. The inside of the house was lit, and I could see some sort of shadow walk past in a few of the windows. The whole house had that creepy vibe to it. It looked like a real haunted house. The twins, both wearing ear-splitting grins on their faces, stood in the entryway, ready to welcome everyone inside. They both wore matching vampire costumes and masks that covered half their faces. The only reason I knew it was the twins was that they had red hair paired with the fact that they were the ones throwing this party, so it would only make sense for them to be greeting everyone. All of the students tried to jam in at once in excitement but quickly realized that they would need to go in smaller groups to enter through the doorway. The doorway was big, but not that big. As students entered, I could hear some of them scream. I couldn't see why they screamed from where I stood, but as I entered the crowded house, I figured out the reason. A white-faced woman, with hollow black eyes, sharp pointed teeth, and a long black dress popped out at me from behind the doorway. The girl I was beside let out a high-pitched scream, and then laughed when she realized it was fake. The women went back to wherever she had been hiding, waiting to pop out at the next unexpected students. As soon as we entered the house, I could hear creepy music mixed with terrifying sounds playing loudly through the house. The inside of the house seemed even larger than it appeared on the outside. We were in a huge hall, with two long marble staircases leading upstairs. A crackling fire roared in the fireplace. Pumpkins hung everywhere along with a variety of other Halloween decorations. There was a large banner that said Happy Birthday Gideon and Fabian Preet. There was a long table with candy and drinks laid out, which most of the students instantly flocked to. I walked over to the table with the girl I was with. There were more kinds of candy here than there were at the Halloween feast. I picked up a coffin-shaped cupcake and bit into it. The inside was filled with the most delicious cream I had ever tasted. As soon as all the students were all inside, the doors to the house slammed shut, and the music quieted down. The twins stood by the door. Although the music had died down, the house was still filled with creepy sounds. The wind whistled through the house, the floorboards creaked, and the crackle of the fire made the house genuinely seem haunted. "Now," Gideon said. I knew it was Gideon because of his curly hair. Fabian had darker and straighter hair than Gideon. "Let's get right to it. Are you lot ready for the treasure hunt?" There was a loud roar of yes. "The game we're going to play is simple," Fabian said. "Inside of each room, there is a small chest," Gideon said. "Inside of each small chest is a metal puzzle piece and a clue," said Fabian. "Collect 6 puzzle pieces, and you'll have the key to the grand treasure chest. Collect 6 clues, and you'll have the location of the grand treasure chest," said Gideon. The twins went back and forth as they spoke as if they could read each other's minds and knew what the other was going to say next. "We estimated that at least half of you will want to quit before you've even gotten to the first chest," Fabian said. "Remember, this is a haunted house. It'll take courage, teamwork, loyalty, and a lot of other things to collect all 6 treasure chests." Inside this room, Gideon gestured to a large, red door that had the words Game Room carved into it. "You'll find games, prizes, and fun to be had. Nothing too scary or challenging. If you want to quit the treasure hunt," Fabian continued, "you're more than welcome to come back and have fun in the game room. But be warned, once you enter the game room, your name will be erased from the list, and there will be no going back." "What list?" you ask, Gideon said. "Let me explain. Each of you must be on a team. You can have no more than 4, and no less than 2 in each team. But choose your team carefully. If one of your team members quit, the rest of your team also quits. All you need to do if you want to quit is say 'I wish to quit this hunt,' and you'll instantly be transported to the game room, along with your whole team. You'll find in each room a rectangle picture frame with numbers in it. The numbers will go down as the game goes on. The numbers represent how many teams are left. This is the list we speak of. Fabian took a large timer from his cape. You have 5 minutes to form your team, and then the hunt begins. Fabian set the timer. All of the students began talking at once. Some called to friends, wanting them to be on their team but not knowing who or where they were. The girl I was with formed a team quickly with her 3 friends, all of whom knew each other. Spotting Lily in her little Red Riding Hood costume among the crowd, I ran over to join her. "Hey," I said. Lily glanced over at me and smiled. "Hi." She stopped mid-sentence, remembering no one was supposed to know who I was. "Do you already have a team?" I continued. The girl standing next to Lily spoke up. "Lily and I are the only ones so far," she said. I recognized her voice and costume. It was Alice Fortescue. "Can I join?" I asked. Alice looked at me skeptically. She didn't know me and didn't know if I could handle the treasure hunt. But before Alice had a chance to say anything, Lily spoke. "Of course," Lily grinned. "You can help us beat James Potter and Sirius Black at this game." "That will show them," she said, glaring over at a group of 4 boys who were jumping about like excited 4-year-olds. I immediately knew who they were. "Well," Alice started to say but was interrupted by a boy, who was also dressed as a pirate. "Nice costume," he said, looking at me. "My code name's Jugson. Can I join your guys' team?" "As long as you won't quit in the middle of the game," Alice said. "What's a code name?" "I won't," Jugson reassured. "A code name is, a fake name. We're not supposed to reveal our identities until the end, "Good thinking," Lily said. "My code name will be Lils, then." "Mine will be Jen," I said. "Well," Alice looked a little uncertain. "I guess mine can be Ally." Just then, the timer went off. "Let the game begin," both of the twins said in chorus. Author's note. Hope you guys enjoyed this chapter and will continue to enjoy many more. Smile.